Hey, what's up everybody? Today I'm going to show you levels and clipping on the evolver, both for building chords and also as like a general programming tips. It's mostly me talking though, so if that's not what you're looking for today, feel free to skip this one. So I'm going to press play on the evolver and you'll see that the clip light indicator is on, but there's no sound. And I'm going to show you that the master volume is up to 100. So in this video, I wanted to show you that there are gain or levels at multiple points of the evolver. And here I'm starting with just oscillator 3, one of the two digital oscillators. The digital oscillators are like significantly louder than the analog oscillators, but it's somewhat waveform dependent, depending on which waveform you have for the digital oscillators. So here I'm showing you the reason why there's no sound, but it's still clipping is because the volume on the VCA page is turned to 0. And I wanted to show you, if you're clipping, don't turn this down because it's at 0 and it's still clipping. So I'll turn the VCA volume up and you'll hear oscillator 3 by itself. So on the evolver, you have 4 oscillators. Each can have a volume of up to 100. But I just showed you how you can get clipping with a single digital oscillator with a value of 100. When I use the digital oscillators, I usually start with a volume of around 80, but it depends on the type of patch. Probably not a huge difference in tone there if I'm being honest, but I feel like the clip light indicator was put there for a reason, so I try to use it as a guide whenever I'm making patches and not have it come on. So what that means is when I'm using the digital oscillators, I usually start with the level around 80. There's a lot of like different factors or variables, but 80 is a pretty safe point to start. And you can always adjust by going up or going down. So here I start at 80, there's no clipping, and I slowly increase the level and wanted to see or show at what point does that clip light turn on. So here we're still not clipping. Once I get to 84, 85, it will clip sometimes depending on which waveform you have. And what I've learned over time is even though the digital oscillators are single cycle waveforms or essentially samples, somehow when it all comes together in the final output of sound, there is sometimes some variance in the volume. And I don't necessarily really know how to explain that or why, but I try to account for variables whenever I do all my like testing and stuff. So here I'm showing you the filter and the resonance especially. So increasing the resonance is going to decrease the amount of bass. So I started with the resonance at 0 in this video because that would be the most amount of bass. And I think you are more likely to get clipping when you have some bass or lower frequencies. So next I'm going to show you how the filter comes into play. So when I press play, we're going to see the clip light indicator come on again, but you'll notice that it's not every single time. Again, I was saying there's some variance to the volume sometimes, but when I push up the envelope amount, increase that, the clip light comes on almost like brighter, or now it's on slightly more consistently, but still like right there before it wasn't on. So if I increase the resonance, it's going to decrease the amount of bass, and now you'll see that the clip light is no longer turning on. So the resonance is going to have like a big effect on the volume, and that's something to watch out for. So if I turn it up all the way to 100, at this point the filter will self oscillate, but it really depends on what frequency you have the filter. So when I turned it down, you see the clip light indicator turned on again. So if you have the filter really high, like high frequency, you might not hear it self oscillating. But again, there's a lot of different factors and variables. And right here, I'm just kind of resetting to where I started. So filter at 100 and envelope amount 25. So I didn't mention this yet, but you'll see in a second, all 4 of the oscillators are set to C1 here. I originally wanted to make either a general programming or a chord tutorial, but wasn't sure how much time to spend on things like the differences between the analog and digital oscillators or gain and clipping. So this video is mostly just that. All four oscillators set to C1. For your analog oscillators, it's abbreviated SAT for sawtooth, and for the digital, it just says 2. So the digital oscillators are much easier to get clipping from. If you have a single analog oscillator and you turn it up all the way to 100, like minus the other thing I showed you about like maxing out the filter resonance, you cannot get clipping. And also, I've only showed you the left side. That's for a specific reason. So rather than show you like oscillator 2 or 4, I keep it on the left side. And you'll see why at the end of this video. So now I want to show you that all the modulation is off, like all the LFOs are off, the mod matrix slots are off, the delays are off, the feedback effect is off, the high pass filter is off, the shape sequencer is off, the ring mod is off, envelope 3 is off, because you can imagine after just showing you how, say, the resonance can have a big difference in volume, if I had an LFO modulating the resonance, it could introduce clipping somewhere, or it would be hard to know exactly like how to pinpoint where our problem is coming from. So next I'm going to show you just the level of the analog oscillator. Again, assuming you're not using any effects, I don't think you can get clipping from a single analog oscillator regardless of waveform, even with the level set to 100. That was oscillator 1, and as you saw, the clip light was not on. I'm going to show you again with a A/B test. So this is oscillator 1. When I press play, the clip light is not on. Next, I'll turn this down and switch over to oscillator 3, and the clip light comes on right away. So we know the levels are different, but one thing I only really started to notice recently is that I think the analog oscillators are also a little bit brighter, possibly because the digital oscillators are 12-bit single cycle waveforms. So going back to the analog oscillators, if I have oscillator 1 with a level of 100, no clipping, then I bring in oscillator 2 set to also a level of 100. So now we have a combined total level of 200, and it's not clipping, compared to one digital oscillator with a level of 100 and we got clipping. So I'm showing you all this because if you want to build chords or even just like layering oscillators on the evolver, you're probably going to want to have the digital oscillators lower. But at the same time, there's like no rules to say that all your oscillators must be the same volume. So I'm showing you the left and right thing again because this video was also meant to be like a general programming guide. So right now I'm on the filter page. I increase the resonance, again, the clip light comes off. So I was trying to show you like general, like the signal flow from oscillator to VCA. And here I turn the resonance down, the clip light comes on again. So watch this. If I were to close the filter all the way, naturally we're not clipping anymore because the filter comes before the VCA. So I was trying to show that like clipping could potentially be introduced at different points, but the best place to start to avoid clipping is getting your oscillator levels right. And that's also why I wanted to show that all the modulation was off in this video. Here I'm setting my oscillators up to make a basic chord. In this case, it's a A minor, so that's the notes A, C, and E using oscillators 1, 2, and 3. And then I set the fine tuning to 0, so there's no detuning between them. I'll show you like detuning and adding movement and stuff in a different video. So one thing you're probably not going to want to do is set all the levels to the same level. So in this case, that's 50, 50, and 50, because the digital oscillators are probably going to like overpower the analog oscillators. But if that's the sound you like or want, you could do that too. because again, there's no rules. So I'm going with 50, 50, and 30 here. And finally, I just want to show you clipping on the left side versus clipping on the right side. I showed you some of the stuff in this video already, but this last part is something I only learned relatively recently. So right now I'm going to reset it to the same level and pitch that I had when I started. So that's C1 for oscillator 3 and a level of 80. I'm going to start it there and start adding oscillator 1 until I hit the point where it starts clipping. Then I'm going to remove oscillator 1 and replace oscillator 1 with oscillator 2, which is on the right side, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So right here, oscillator 1 is set to a sawtooth, and we're going to start increasing the level to see at what point the clip light comes on. It's already on now. I might have missed that when I did the recording, but the point is still the same. So right here, that's 80 plus 75, that's 155. And we're clipping, and that's 155 all on the left side. So if I turn down oscillator 1 now, and I replace oscillator 1 with oscillator 2 set to the same pitch, same waveform, same level, you'll see we don't get clipping. And with that, I rest my case. If you guys want to see more like this, then you know where to find me.